Dominate and sell. When you meet your client and start your sales presentation, the client tends to complicate things. Maybe he's had a bad day, but it's clear that he wants to finish as quickly as possible, and, failing that, take complete control of the presentation and push you aside. He intuitively knows that frames create context and importance. The one who holds the frame dominates. When you explain exactly what you're going to talk about and what you won't talk about, the client immediately begins to show a form of resistance called a frame break. For example, when you say, "Thanks to our services, you can expect your revenue to reach 10 million euros next year." He interrupts you and changes the frame by saying, "Who can trust revenue forecasts you just made up? Just tell me how much this service is going to cost me." A minute later, while you're explaining, "The secret of our success lies in such and such advanced technology," he replies, "No, that's not any special secret, it's just something ordinary." You say, "We have an industry-leading company among our biggest clients." He interrupts you by saying, "Listen, I'll be done in 10 minutes, can you get straight to the point?" He really makes things difficult. You can imagine how complicated it is to use all the established sales techniques: setting the frame, telling the story, introducing suspense, presenting the reward, anchoring the point of attraction, and getting the decision. And after only a few minutes from the start, what you hope would be your best presentation begins to show all the signs that it will be one of the worst. You are faced with the presenter's problem. You may have an impressive knowledge of your subject, present your most important points clearly, even with passion, and be very organized. You can do all of this perfectly, and yet not be convincing. Imagine for a moment that there is a kind of powerful energy that surrounds us all, and that this energy flows silently from the depths of our subconscious. This invisible defensive shield is designed to protect our conscious minds from the sudden intrusion of ideas and viewpoints that are foreign to us. But when the energy of this field is depleted, it collapses. Our mental defenses then fail, and we become subject to the thoughts, desires, and commands of another person. At that moment, that person can impose their will on us. No one really knows for sure whether human energy fields exist, but it may be the best way to conceive of the mental structures that shape our perception of the world, which we call frames. Imagine that you are looking at the world through the frame of a window that you hold in your hands. And as you move this frame, you interpret the sounds and images you see in a way that aligns with your intelligence, values, and morals. This is your point of view. Another person can look at the same thing through their own frame, and what they hear and see may differ from yours, slightly or greatly. The common term for this is perspective. I can perceive and interpret things differently from you, and that's a good thing. The other perspective is often what we need to develop our ideas and values. However, when we interpret the world through our frames, something else happens. Our brain processes what our senses convey and reacts quickly by asking a series of questions. Is it dangerous? Can I eat it? This is how the crocodile brain works. It does what it does best: detect frames, protect us from threats, and use dominance and aggression to repel intrusive ideas and information. There are millions of people in the business world, and each one comes to their social encounters with their own frame. When two or more people meet to interact in a professional environment, their frames collide and clash with each other, but not in a collaborative or friendly way. Frames are extremely competitive. They are rooted in our survival instincts and seek to maintain dominance. When frames meet, the first thing that happens is collision. It's not a friendly competition, but a deadly fight. Frames do not merge, mix, or overlap. They clash, and the stronger frame dominates the weaker one. One single frame will take control after the exchange. The other frames become subordinate to the winner. This is what happens in every business meeting you attend, every sales call you make, and every personal interaction you have at work. The moment your frame meets that of the person you're communicating with, the two frames collide, confront, and compete for dominance. If your frame wins, you will have frame control. Your ideas will be accepted and followed by others. But if your frame loses, you will be at the mercy of your client, and your success will depend on their generosity and willingness. Understanding how to harness the power of frames and apply it is the most important thing you will ever learn. One of the many advantages of using a frame-based approach in business interactions is that it doesn't require a lot of techniques, tactics, or eloquent speech. In fact, the less you speak, the more effective your impact. Classic sales techniques were designed for people who are unfamiliar with the frame clash, those who fumble to manage their business from a subordinate or weak position. The sad truth is that classic sales methods are often ineffective and end up irritating the other party rather than fostering pleasant and mutually beneficial exchanges. What these sales experts forget is this: when you fail to control the social frame, you have likely already lost from the start. And all you can do then is struggle to survive using fast talk, gimmicky sales techniques, forced closing attempts, and many other equally ineffective and annoying tactics that signal to the client that you are needy, desperate, and defeated. By advocating the law of large numbers, sales techniques experts ask you to work longer and harder, without any real competitive advantage. They encourage you to compensate for your weak position through colossal effort to land new business, claiming it's just a numbers game. They ask you to waste all this time in your life in that way. Frame-based business takes the opposite approach. It encourages using social dynamics and setting the conditions to your advantage from the very start, even before the game begins. When we reflect on the reasons for a deal's failure, we often conclude that the terms of the transaction were not suitable for the buyer, or that we had a bad day and presented things inadequately, or that the buyer found something they liked better. But the truth is that the deal fails for much less obvious reasons, because frame control is determined even before the presentation begins. When you dominate the frame, you are in a position to reach an agreement with the buyer, but also able to choose the contracts, orders, or projects you want to work on, rather than settling for whatever comes your way. Instead of exhausting yourself with dozens of tiring and fruitless calls and presentations, you will learn how to take control of the frame and maintain it. You will likely find yourself presenting offers for 5 deals, discarding 2 that don't suit you, and keeping the 3 that do. The frame is the means by which you showcase your strength, authority, solidity, knowledge, and status. Everyone uses frames, whether they are aware of it or not. Every social interaction combines different frames. Frames cannot coexist for long in the same time and place. They collide, and one of them eventually dominates. Only one frame survives, while the others break and are absorbed. The strongest frames always absorb the weaker ones. The winning frame is the one that controls the social interaction. To better understand the concepts related to frames and their fundamental functions in social interactions, here is an example of a dominant frame you already know, a near-typical example of frame mastery. Imagine that you are driving on a highway lined with beautiful scenery. The weather is perfect, the view is splendid, and you are speeding without realizing it, so absorbed in enjoying the sunset. The moment is perfect, until the flashing lights of a police car catch your attention in the rearview mirror. The shrill sound of the siren and the flashing lights of the police car alert your reptilian brain that danger is imminent. My God, where did he come from? How fast was I going? These are the last thoughts that cross your mind before fear, a fundamental and instinctive emotion, takes over, and your reptilian brain assumes control of your actions. You are no longer acting of your own free will. You are now under the authority of the police. As your hand reaches for the vehicle documents, you see the officer approaching in the rearview mirror. As we will see through this example, frames simplify human communication and present it from a certain perspective, along with all the information associated with it. You roll down the car window. At that moment, 2 frames are about to collide, the officer's frame and yours. What does your frame consist of? Is it, I was following the flow of traffic, or, I thought the speed limit was higher on this road? You decide on the nice guy frame. Officer, I'm usually a good driver, how about letting me off this time? But the officer's frame is almost impossible to defeat. It is supported morally, socially, and politically. In addition, he also has proof against you thanks to the radar. You smile submissively as you hand him your driver's license and vehicle documents. He pauses for a moment, looking stern behind his sunglasses. Your nice driver frame is about to collapse. He asks you, do you know why I pulled you over? You know you were speeding. And since you have no higher moral authority to invoke in this frame game, your frame will collapse. When you respond ineffectively to what the other person says or does, it means that person controls the frame and you are subject to their frame. Of course, there's no mystery about the outcome here. The officer holds the stronger frame. Your frames collide, and it's the officer's frame that prevails. Let's now explore the officer's frame on a deeper level to understand what really happened. What happened is that the image of his car in your rearview mirror and its flashing lights triggered instinctive reactions of fear, anxiety, and obedience within you. Your primitive brain went into defense mode. The muscles in your stomach tightened. Your breathing and your heartbeats go faster, and blood rushes to your face. All of this happens the moment your primitive brain is alerted. You are unable to create any frame, perspective, or way of viewing the situation strong enough to break the office's frame. The fundamental lesson from the office's frame is this: if you have to explain your authority, power, position, influence, or advantage, it means you do not hold the strongest frame. Resorting to rational arguments, logic, or higher authority never wins a frame clash and does not grant any frame control. Notice that the officer doesn't need to explain why he is giving you a ticket. He doesn't have to logically justify his decision to you, assert his authority, place his hand on his weapon, or describe what would happen if you choose to resist. He doesn't feel the need to explain how important it is for you to remain calm and obedient. Nor does he point out that you are feeling fear or anxiety. Your reptilian brain reacts immediately and naturally to the officer's frame. You react. The reptilian brain is in control. Your actions are automatic, primitive, and beyond your awareness. At the end of this social interaction, the officer hands you the ticket. The roadside interaction ends here. All the officer says to you next is, "Sign here. The pink copy is for you." And finally, not as a mere remark, but perhaps as a reward for your calmness and obedience, he says, "Slow down. Have a good day," thus crowning your defeat with a feeling of shame. Each social interaction is a clash of frames, and the strongest frame is always the winner. Frame collisions are primitive. They deactivate the rational brain and activate the reptilian brain to decide what actions to take. Strong frames are immune to rational arguments. Weak arguments, consisting of logical discussions and facts, always bounce off powerful frames. The success of a presentation depends on your ability to build strong frames, immune to rational arguments. These powerful frames are capable of breaking weak frames and, consequently, absorbing them. Is there a formula to create such a frame and use it? Yes, there is indeed one. When you attend this training, you will discover these sales secrets that only a few people know. Have a good day.